Colin Cowherd is back on the Caitlin Clark train, and he's back calling out the haters.
Colin Cowherd just dropped a nuclear bomb on the WNBA establishment, delivering a cold, undeniable verdict that completely shatters every diplomatic excuse surrounding the Indiana Fever. Looking dead into a national television camera, Cowherd finally validated millions of frustrated fans by shouting what they've screamed for weeks. Caitlin Clark doesn't need adjusted system or minor rotation tweaks. She needs a radically better coach. He exposed head coach Stephanie White for running an archaic, outdated offense that forcefully crams a once-in-a-generation prodigy into a rigid box rather than building the entire franchise around her historic gravity. The ultimate betrayal occurred when Clark miraculously exploded for 17 fourth-quarter points to erase a massive deficit, and White weaponized her post-game press conference to actively dismiss her star point guard, pivoting to vague team concepts instead of acknowledging the greatness that saved her. This toxic dynamic has officially pushed the franchise to a breaking point, transforming a leaked sideline altercation and a massive fan rebellion into the most explosive, highly volatile coaching crisis in the history of women's basketball.
Let's listen to him, man.
So Caitlin Clark, third season in the WNBA, has already set the record. She had another game in which she had at least 20 points and 10 assists. And I have been saying when she broke into the league, people said her comp is Steph Curry. Now, I think stylistically, the way she plays her game has got some Steph Curry. I think, though, in terms of an iconic player, she's more Michael Jordan.
The Indiana Fever's brutal 104-102 double overtime loss to the Washington Mystics just exposed a massive, dysfunctional rift between a generational superstar and her head coach. For 3 agonizing quarters, Caitlin Clark was entirely suffocated by an aggressive, destructive defense and a stagnant system that completely robbed her spacing, leaving her a disastrous 4 of 20 from the field. Then, the fourth quarter exploded. Clark ignited into absolute superhero mode, torching the Mystics by drilling 5 clutch three-pointers and dropping 17 points in a single frame to single-handedly erase a humiliating 9-point home deficit. It was a spectacular, high-octane display of pure superstar that dragged the Fever back from the dead. Yet the real disaster struck post-game. When explicitly asked about Clark's heroic individual rally, head coach Stephanie White delivered a chilling, calculated snub, completely freezing out her star player by pivoting to vague, diplomatic team concepts. By aggressively ignoring a direct question and refusing to even utter Clark's name after a historic performance, White proved she would rather protect her rigid system than acknowledge the elite talent saving her franchise.
Record! Colin Cowherd went on record and stated, she is not the coach for CC, bruh. Now listen to NBC reporters during the game, y'all. Listen to this right here.
Tonight, Caitlin Clark has been responsible for 38 of Indiana's 77 points.
The online fallout from this press conference disaster was immediate, savage, and completely blew up the internet. Fans tore into the leadership, with one brilliantly stating, "She tries to answer like Greg Popovich, but she coaches like Doc Rivers," while others declared absolute proof that White is actively trying to suppress Clark's brilliance. These aren't just casual, fringe complaints. This is a highly educated, furious fan base watching a toxic organizational rift worsen by the day. What the mainstream media completely ignores is the deep psychology behind this coaching failure. Elite sports leaders publicly name and elevate their franchise superstars after heroic moments to build unshakable confidence and championship culture. Instead, White weaponized corporate, deflecting language to talk about collective effort, intentionally blinded herself to the moment Clark bled for. By refusing to utter her superstar's name, White didn't just make a bad tactical decision. She executed a calculated, public snub that completely sabotaged her team's future.
Calm down, everybody, and definitely don't read the comments. But whatever the case may be, Caitlin Clark need her Phil Jackson. And as of right now, the closest thing to Caitlin Clark, Phil Jackson, is Lisa Bluder. And the Indiana Fever need to figure out a way to get that young lady. I'm going to call her young lady.
The blatant hypocrisy of this coaching staff completely exploded just minutes later when head coach Stephanie White was asked about Kelsey Mitchell's rough 0 for 7 start. Suddenly, White miraculously remembered how to praise an individual, declaring herself speechless and claiming Mitchell put the team on her back. this toxic double standard, where Clark rescue mission is labeled group resilience, but a veteran's recovery is hailed as a heroic solo feat, is precisely why the Indiana Fever's locker room culture is actively burning to the ground. This exact dynamic forms the backbone of Colin Cowherd's explosive national television segment, where he accurately compared Clark to a young Michael Jordan needing her Phil Jackson. Cowherd exposed the fact that Clark is a heliocentric offensive force who is most lethal when dictating the entire game through her immense gravitational pull, making a rigid, equal opportunity passing system a structural disaster for her talent. This isn't a shot at Stephanie White's character or past credentials. It is a definitive high-velocity indictment on absolute catastrophic mismatch in fit.
And I've always felt her game is Steph. I think she has a chance to be Jordan-esque, which is multiple championships if she can get the right coach and the right running mate. And I think she has that player.
Y'all see that? Y'all see that slight at Stephanie White? He says she has the right player, but she don't got the right coach. Caitlin Clark need her Phil Jackson.
A great hammer and a great screw simply do not belong together, and the undeniable empirical evidence of this catastrophic mismatch is growing by the second, just 4 games into the season. Sitting at a mediocre 2-2 with 2 brutal overtime home losses, the franchise is facing a massive financial boycott as thousands of empty seats suffocate the arena. Nearly 3,000 seats sat completely vacant during the Seattle Storm game, a devastating reality for a player who effortlessly sold out every building she stepped into just a year ago, proving fans are fiercely refusing to fund this blatant coaching malpractice. This toxic tension finally erupted on the hardwood as explosive new sideline footage surfaced, exposing Caitlin Clark in a heated, highly visible altercation, violently gesturing and pushing back against the coaching staff's relentless micromanagement. Clark is completely fed up with being treated like a disposable role player in an offense she is genetically engineered to dominate. If Stephanie White wants to survive this relentless national media firestorm, save her job, and halt the financial bleeding of a furious fan rebellion, she must immediately swallow her ego and execute 3 non-negotiable tactical fixes before it is too late.
In year 4. So Caitlin comes into the league, rookie sensation. Year 2, last year she's hurt. Year 3, okay, her stats are great again. When is she going to start winning at the next level? She has not won a playoff series yet. And so my take is she has her Pippen, Kelsey Mitchell.
Fix number 1 requires Stephanie White to drop the corporate deflection and boldly name Caitlin Clark when the moment demands it, building the foundational trust and elite organizational culture necessary to forge an unstoppable championship dynasty. Second, White must immediately provide transparent accountability regarding the benching of proven veteran talent like Shadowrai Walker-Kimbrough, replacing deafening silence with a professional communication that suffocates outside conspiracy theories. Finally, she must permanently kill the toxic off-ball narrative by completely surrendering the keys of the offense to Clark, allowing her to dictate the pace on the floor as the undisputed centerpiece of the franchise. Colin Cowherd's national television takedown landed with such devastating force because he weaponized the exact truth millions of fans feel in their gut. The Indiana Fever possess the raw talent to dominate, but they are being actively suppressed by an outdated coaching approach. With ownership, the media, and a furious fan base scrutinizing every single possession at a microscopic level, White is completely out of time. She must either radically evolve her philosophy or face permanent replacement, because a culture of empty arenas, sideline altercations, and post-game snubs will always lead to an absolute organizational collapse.